we're going to start with untangling the confusing definitions of power. First, in the dictionary, we get a physics definition of the amount of work over time. Thank you, and there's so much validity in physics, and also that's not relevant to us in an embodied, immediately understandable way. So we're going to keep going. Second, in our etymology, when we go back to the 13th century, we see an origin in the English language of power being conflated with authority or control, especially with the ability to create outcomes in battle. Wow, defeating a foe is what power is. In that, immediately, we see disconnection consciousness and adversary consciousness. So let's look at another angle. From Jose Luis Stevens, who's a former organizational consultant and also a shaman, he describes power as the ability to take ever more responsibility for ourselves and our life. Wow, that's so different. What are the consequences of that? Well, first of all, one of the clarifications he gives is that we don't own power. Power is something that we actually open up to. So in regards to our cultivation of energy and our cultivation of sensing, what we're actually doing is expanding our vessel to let more flow through us. It's not about grabbing more and having more. It's about opening to more. So here's how I like to define power. It's the amount of energy a being can access and direct through themselves and their systems. And there are two main access points for that: inner cultivation and social sanctioning and narratives. So there's a stigma, a very large stigma, oftentimes around power, especially in communities of heart-centered people, because we have all this programming about power, about how it corrupts us and it's bad, and if we want power, then we're egomaniacs. Again, that's because there's this warped sensing of what power has to be. It's seeing power through the disconnection consciousness lens. But when we see power through a connection consciousness lens, then what we're talking about is being able to direct more energy for self and the connections we have in our lives and systems. We all have a desire, I believe. Every single human has a desire for greater inner power. Because what that means when we open up for more energy to move through our being is we're inhabiting our essence. We're literally removing blockage to our own nature, to our own gifts, to our own purpose. We're letting life have an intimate relationship with us and guide us to be this creative expression that only we can be. So we all have, as a human birthright, access to inner power. And at the same time, our social systems and our organizational systems and our cultural narratives convey some of us more power than others. These two things are important to note at the same time. Because oftentimes what happens in human discord in relationship at any scale is the tension between all of us having the ability to access our inner power and some people having more power than others through decision-making rights that have been bestowed on them through the roles in their organizations or through the cultural narratives that have been passed down or created to support disconnection consciousness and power concentrating in the hands of a few. How do we deal with this? First, let's recognize that when we're talking about aspects of disconnection in a culture, yes, everyone can stand up for themselves. Everyone's journey needs to be acknowledged. We're all on our way home. We're all healing. We're all stepping more fully into our essence. And some people have been dealt a better hand based on the cultural stigmas that exist in whatever country you live in. So we have to hold complexity. We have to understand in our cohort, as we're stepping more fully into our power, The bodies we live in and the identities we inhabit, we have to hold them loosely and be open to our ever unfolding being. And we also have to recognize the consequences of them and take responsibility. And that's where we come to alchemy. Because the places where there are disconnection, the places where there's blockage, we get to transform them.